here is the puppy. He is sleeping on top of my polar fleece. There's all sorts of other crap around him. And it's in the middle of the night. Well, not really. It's like 11 o'clock, 10:30. And I'm grumpy enough so that I'm going to look at Huck Finn 8. The real 8, not the fake one I did yesterday. So this is one of the pictures that's in the middle of it. And I think it's an important picture to think about. Because Huck has a gun. He has a gun. And he looks pretty confused. And he looks really short, which makes sense if he's 12 or 13 years old. Whereas when you look at Jim, Jim's big. Jim's a big guy. He's 35, 40 years old, or let's say 30 to 35 years old. And he's right there, and he's kneeling. And this scene is one of the most misinterpreted, in my opinion, in the whole work. So let's look at best practice stuff. Oh, puppy's awake. And he's flapping. So this homework, I think, gets the idea. It's important, and we'll do this in a second, to whenever you have Jim and Huck in the scene, to think about the scene from Jim's point of view. All right? Jim, yes, he's afraid. He wants to run away from Miss Watson. Has that been his plan all along? Well, maybe, maybe not. Jim seems to play dumb when he encounters Huck. Absolutely. He seems to know that Huck found Jackson out, but still asks him questions. Okay. They both ran away from their problems. Now, at this point, you're talking ragtime. Because Jim's problems, though Huck is definitely in the middle of abuse, I'm just going to turn around and say Jim's problems are more. So let's just stop this for a second. Huck has money. One of the first things, the most important things of the stupid book is that Huck has money. Huck leaves. He gets taken by his father, and then he quote-unquote dies. Well, as soon as Huck quote-unquote dies, that means Miss Watson ain't getting no more cash. She needs cash. How's she going to get rid of cash? She's going to sell a slave. Who's the best slave to sell? Jim. So all that nice little widow lady stuff that she was doing, or the Bible and all the Moses and all, she's all set to ready to sell Jim. Jim does not want to get sold, so Jim leaves. Why doesn't Jim want to get sold? A, if he gets further down the river, it's a problem because they're nasty down there and he's not going to live. B, right now he's about 10 miles, 15 miles away from his family. So that's pretty close. So he's hoping like, maybe we can get back there. Maybe there's something I can do. And then here's one other problem. And this goes back to a map I should have put into this thing. Across the river is Illinois. They're in Missouri. Illinois is a free state. If he gets across the river, he's free. Now they could go run after him, but his plan is go grab his kids, get in a boat, sail across the road to Illinois, live free. Not a bad plan, right? But Huck has no idea about this because Huck doesn't think about what the hell's going on. So he doesn't get this whole mess. More of this in a moment. I think it's really hard. I think this is right in terms of like how to think about race, but we have to always remember the person telling the story is Huck, and he's dumb. But once again, in this case, you see Huck using the N-word. There he is. Why? Because that's the only word he knows. That's the word he knows for what's going on. He doesn't realize how stupid it is for him to use it. That's also why I bring in green. The green passage is to show that Jim is probably playing a trick, or not necessarily playing a trick, but he's hiding a little bit. And I include this one because I think that this one's off. But this is the standard read. If you were to look at SparkNotes, this is the SparkNotes answer. I don't literally know that, but this is the standard answer that people read for this book for 100 years. He paints his character as racist. Many of the people who don't like this book right now and are fairly thoughtful people, they think about Jim as a stereotyped pickaninny African-American. And he's superstitious. He seems dim-witted. Absolutely. All right? And it's a contrast, and the contrast is to Green. Now, I included Jacob Green not because he's a contrast, because I think Jim's doing the same thing. And maybe the writer has figured this out. But remember, Huck is a limited narrator. He doesn't know. Doesn't know. All right, now let's look on to something else. So this is what happens at the end of the book. Period 2. I noticed about 3 of you actually read to the end of the chapter. The chapter, if you listen to it on YouTube, will take you 12 minutes. So if you can find a way to squeeze 12 minutes in, you can have somebody read it to you so you can get to the end of the chapter. And it was Miss Watson's gym. Think about how that is. I bet I was glad to see him. I says, "Hello, Jim," and skipped out. So now think, you're a runaway slave trying to get to your kids. You're stuck on an island. You have no idea. You've been there for 3 days. All you're doing is eating strawberries, and out comes a white kid with a gun. And he goes, "Hello, Jim. You got some options. One option is to beat on him. Another option is to run away. But he's a white kid with the gun. So what do you do? How about you play stupid?" He bounced up and stared at me wild. Of course he did. Then he drops down on his knees and puts his hands together and says, "Don't hurt me, don't. I never done no harm to a ghost. I always liked dead people. I done all I could for them. You go and get in the river again where you belong, so don't do nothing to old Jim. I just always love you, always your friend." Right. So here he is. He's on his knees. He's begging like this. What's he doing? He's buying time. What is this kid going to do? Because remember again, Huck is like 12. He's a little kid. That's why I started off with that picture. He's little. So Jim knows if Huck, who's actually his real owner, if Huck goes out and says, "Hey, I found Jim," Jim's screwed. Because now he's going to sold to New Orleans. On the other hand, Huck's supposed to be dead, and here he is. So maybe there's a way this game can play out. Well, I weren't taking long making him understand I weren't dead. I was ever so glad to see Jim. I weren't lonesome now. Let's go back again to what we know about Huck. He's an orphan, or he's basically an orphan. There's no one who's around him except for Tom Sawyer. And he's always lonely. What did he think about his father? Why did he stay with his father? Because otherwise he's lonely and he's all alone. So now he's not lonesome. I told him I wasn't afraid of him telling the people where I was. I talked along and he only sat there and looked at me, never said nothing. Think about that. Think about that. Because what's going right there, what's going on in Jim's head, and don't think he's stupid. He's smart. Jim's looking at Huck and he's going, okay, I got this lonely white kid right in front of me. Maybe we can work something out here. And he doesn't seem to know what's going on. Now we go to the rest of this thing. It's good daylight. Let's get breakfast. Make up your campfire good. And so now we talk about strawberries. Now, some people think that Jim's still playing a game right here. I actually think he's probably pretty straight. So we went over to where the canoe was. I'm down here at the bottom. And he built a fire in a grassy open place amongst the trees. I fetched meal and bacon and coffee, and coffee pot and frying pan, and sugar and tin cups, and the nigger was set back considerable. Look at all the ants. Look at all the ants. All right? Twain's throwing something at you. Obviously, Huck Finn, when he left his father's little cabin, he took a bunch of stuff. And a bunch of stuff that was smart. He's got cornmeal. He's got bacon. He's got all this other stuff all set to go. He can survive. He's A-okay. He's a prepper. He's ready to go. And he reckoned it was all done with witchcraft. So you see right there, Jim's still playing stupid. Now, the reason I can say Jim's still playing stupid because later on we see Jim being smart. And that this Jim, talking about ghosts and everything else, he knows he's playing a game, just the way Jacob Green was playing a game. All right, everybody, have a good night. Peace.